Hi guys, welcome back. This is part 5. Today we are going to be working on the front of the bike. We're going to try and get this headlight off. Now I know that there's a problem with this headlight. I know that one of the bolts that is holding it in place, one of the screws that goes into the housing, is cross-threaded, which means we're going to have to get a drill on it and try and drill it out. What I'm concerned about is damaging the wiring loom on the inside. I'm going to try and minimize the amount of problems that I create by not doing things properly. So I'm going to refer to the service manual, double check that what I plan to do is within their guidelines, and then hopefully we'll be able to get that front headlight off. I'm also going to remove my addition, which I put onto pretty much any vehicle that I own, which is my train horn. It's just something I've always done and will continue to do no matter how big or how small the vehicle is, whether it be a car, a van or a bike. I've got something special planned for that for the rebuild. If you want to know how I attached the horn, I'm going to do a whole video on how I wired everything up, because it involves compressors and air lines and the actual horns themselves and where I mounted them. You'll get a quick glimpse in a minute of where it's located on my bike if you wanted to replicate it on yours. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. Fingers crossed everything goes okay today as opposed to yesterday, which was just a pain in the ass. So let's go. So the screws that you need to locate on the headlight are the 2 rear screws. You have 4 screws in total on the headlight. You have 1 either side of the lens on the rim of the headlight, and that's to adjust the position of the headlight itself. Then you have the 2 rear screws, which are located here, and that's what's going to allow you to take the actual headlight assembly off of the frame. And it's one of these that I know is cross-threaded, and we're going to have to drill it out. So if you ever need to drill anything out, the rule kind of is start with something small. This is just a broken small bit, but still kind of works. And go up a size, and then up another size. Oh, that was a good sound. That one popped straight out. So hopefully we should be able to now, I think that bottom, the first one's still not quite right, but there we go. Yeah, the bolt is still on, but it should, there we go. That's what we're trying to drill out. This head here. Oh, it's all corroded, and there's no way that was coming out on its own. This thing had been soaked in WD-40 for over a week, and it hasn't even touched it. So, a little bit of damage to the housing here. If we can't salvage this, we'll probably replace it. It looks like it's on its last legs anyway. It's not in the best of condition. The important bit is this front rim. I can get a new housing pretty cheap, but I am thinking of putting a Daymaker in here instead, but we shall see. Okay, so we just disconnected the main light. This is pretty straightforward. You have this junction box here that sits on the 3 prongs on the rear of the light. That just pulls off like so. It's quite a tight fit, which is nice. And then you have these two wires which go into a light here. And rather than try to disconnect them at the actual light, I've disconnected them from the wiring loom. So now that that's free, we can put it to one side, wrap it in a towel, finally get rid of this sticker. Okay, so on closer inspection, one saving grace that I've got, which you may also have in regards to the headlight of your bike, is that they are color coordinated cables. So in order to get this nest out of the headlight and down behind the headlight so we can release it all together, we need to disconnect these wires here from each other so that there's enough room for us to push them through the hole in the bottom of the headlight assembly. So I'm going to now try and make sure, and the other thing you've got certain connectors like this blue one. When you disconnect this, obviously when you come to put everything back together, it's only going to go back into this connector. I'm sure there will be one or two that give us a headache when we put everything back together, but we've got to get this headlight assembly off. Okay, so now we're down to the last part of the wiring loom. This has actually been tucked in really quite tightly from the back, so rather than force it through, I'm going to undo this plate here, which should release the entire housing, which will allow me to bring it forward to then push those last few wires through. And you can see the state of the housing. It's pretty battered. It's not the kind of thing I would want to put back on, going through all this work. Doesn't have to be brand new, just something that's going to have a little bit more longevity to it. This is really corroded. Okay, so now the headlight assembly is completely free off of that fixing plate, and I'm just going to feed this cable up and through like so. You can really see the rust and corrosion in there. I would go out on a limb and say that this is definitely stock. This has been on the bike for at least 15 years, so we'll change it. The wires, when they come out of the headlight loom, they go down and underneath the yoke here. So what we need to now do is very carefully pull them down and out of this yoke. I'm hoping that there's a clamp that I can release. Let's just have a look. That might help us. So there's that one. Hey, there it is. Boy, all the corrosion, that's all that white powder, that's corrosion. Okay, that gives us a bit more movement. Now we're not working blind and we can actually see what we're doing. I really don't want to have to disconnect things if I don't have to. We are free. My God, that's something, that is. Wasn't expecting it to be quite as traumatic as that. This part of the wiring loom will come free, and that's what runs back across the entire bike. So we should be able to remove pretty much the entire wiring loom. Right hand side indicator, two little black wires, goes into the green connection. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that those two little black wires off the other wire are for the other indicator, which go into the black connection. Okay, so the clutch cable that's coming down from the handlebars and goes back here is going through the same channel as the wiring loom, and because of all the plastic blocks and connectors and stuff on the wiring loom, there's not enough space to bring the cable through at the moment. So we are going to have to disconnect the clutch cable, which we'll be doing in the next video. There are a few bits and pieces we need to take note of down here. While a lot of this is free, we've still got to consider the ignition barrel, we've got solenoids, we've got coil packs that need to come off, but we're getting closer. Okay guys, that's it for today. I'm sorry we didn't manage to get the entire wiring harness out of the bike, but there's a few bits and pieces that I found along the way that need to be addressed before we can go pulling everything off. It was good to get involved with that headlight though and finally see how the wiring inside is all put together. It was really nice to see that the wiring is color coded, while there is a couple wires here and there that don't seem to indicate clearly what they do or where they go. But I'll refer to the service manual and hopefully that will give us some indication when we come to the rebuild. If you liked what you see today guys, please feel free to hit that like button, it's always appreciated. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them as soon as possible. And please consider subscribing, as it really does help me in growing the channel. All the best guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.